the silence dark, whispers in the midnight park. The night is cold, there's no escape. Ghostly figures take their shape.
Hey, welcome back to another spine-tingling, popcorn-popping episode of Real Talk Horror Edition. In this podcast, I dive deep into the weirdest, wildest, and sometimes wonderfully ridiculous corners of horror cinema. I'm your host, Josh, and today, I think I've got a real treat for you. A film that's as unsettling as it is funny. I'm talking about the 1985 cult classic, The Stuff. Now, I want you to imagine this. You're at a family gathering. There's a dessert table loaded with all kinds of sweet treats. But here's the twist. What if one of those desserts were alive? What if it had an agenda? Well, The Stuff takes that premise and runs with it, turning the sweet and innocent into something far more sinister. This film is a mix of body horror, dark humor, and social satire all rolled into one chaotic package. It's the kind of movie that you can't really explain without sounding like you've kind of lost your mind. And that is what makes this movie so great. So picture this. A mysterious, delicious substance, just called The Stuff, starts popping up everywhere. People are eating it like it's the best thing since sliced bread. But there's a catch. This gooey treat is more than just a snack. It's got an evil agenda. It turns its consumers into mindless zombies, literally from the inside out. It's body horror in the most bizarre yet oddly entertaining way. And of course, you've got a mix of over-the-top performances with a cast that plays it just serious enough to make the absurdity of it even more fun. But let's not get too ahead of ourselves. This movie is weird. In a good way, but it's weird nonetheless. The story, the special effects, the characters, they all come together to create something that is really a glorious mess. It's a film that knows exactly what it is. A satire on consumerism, a body horror romp, and a 1980s fever dream all wrapped into one. But is it actually any good? Well, that's what I'm going to try to break down today. I'll talk about what makes the stuff tick, or squirm more like it, what works, where it falls off the rails, and if it's worth your time, or if you should just skip it altogether. And of course, we'll wrap it up with my final verdict in the Real Talk segment, where I'll let you know if this movie deserves a spot in your horror movie marathon, or if you should just leave this one in the past. Now, before we dive into the plot and what makes this film such a bizarre treasure, let's take a quick look at the mastermind behind the madness, director Larry Cohen. If you're not familiar with his work, you're in for a treat. Cohen is known for blending horror with satire and tackling serious themes through the lens of just absolute absurdity. And The Stuff is no exception. So let's get into it, shall we? Alright, let's dig in to The Stuff. Released in 1985, this film comes from the mind of Larry Cohen, a director who made a career out of blending social commentary with genre films. And if you're thinking this is just another typical horror flick, you'd be dead wrong. The Stuff is part satire, part creature feature, and 100% off-the-wall weird. This is the kind of film that'll make you laugh, it'll make you cringe, and if you're like me, it'll keep you thinking about it long after you've turned it off and moved on with your day. Now, let's talk about the star power here. The lead role goes to Michael Moriarty, who plays a corporate spy named Mo Rutherford. His job? To investigate a new dessert sensation that's taking over the country. Something called, you guessed it, The Stuff. Sounds innocent enough, right? But there's a twist. As we know, The Stuff is anything but innocent. And as Mo digs deeper, he discovers that this new treat isn't just taking over people's taste buds, it's taking over their bodies. and in some seriously horrifying ways. The cast is rounded out with Andrea Marcovici, the great Garrett Morris, and even Paul Sorvino. And yes, Paul Sorvino gives this hilariously over-the-top performance as a paranoid militia leader who thinks the stuff is part of some big government conspiracy. The thing with Sorvino is, like, he knows exactly how to chew the scenery in a way that adds this perfect layer of camp to this already ridiculous film, and it's just amazing. A fun tidbit about the movie: Larry Cohen actually got the idea for the stuff after noticing how easily marketing campaigns could convince people to buy or consume just about anything. Think about it. You've got new food products or fads that come and go all the time, and people just can't seem to get enough. So Cohen thought, what if something people love so much was actually alive and, deadly? And that little idea led to one of the strangest and most entertaining horror films of the 80s. Now, I added the stuff to my watch list because, well, it's one of those films that keeps popping up on the list of weirdest horror films of all time, and who doesn't love a good dose of practical effects and some campy, unforgettable dialogue? I mean, we're talking about a movie where a jingle for a dessert might just give you nightmares. It's the kind of flick that never takes itself too seriously, and that makes it even more fun. Now, speaking of that weirdness, let's get a bit into the heart of the movie, and that's the effects. Because when you think about it, what good is a film like The Stuff without some of those wild practical effects? And the movie doesn't disappoint in that department. From the slimy, gooey creatures that come out of the dessert to the bizarre transformations, it's all done with some seriously impressive practical work. And that's right, there's no CGI here, just good old-fashioned, in-your-face horror. But let's not get ahead of ourselves here. First, I want to explore what makes the film's social commentary so compelling, because at its core, The Stuff is truly just a critique of consumerism and mass marketing. And that's a theme that still rings true today. So how exactly does it manage to get this point across in such a strange and offbeat way? Well, let's talk about that next. Alright, well, let's dive into what The Stuff is really about. Because as with any good social commentary, this movie's got layers. It kicks off with something that feels almost too weird to be true. It's got this mysterious white goo bubbling up from the ground. Now, someone just has to taste it, right? I mean, it's goo coming from the earth, so who wouldn't? So they do. And surprise, surprise, it's absolutely delicious. Like, really good. To the point where people start to get obsessed with it. You know how you feel when you discover a new snack and can't stop eating it? Now imagine that, but times 100. The Stuff is marketed as the next big dessert sensation. Like a new ice cream or yogurt, but it's definitely got some sinister undertones, as you might expect from a movie like this. And here's the kicker. The Stuff isn't just the mindless treat. As we mentioned, it's alive. And I mean really alive, because it's got its own agenda. It's not satisfied with just being eaten and enjoyed. No, it wants something far darker. The Stuff begins to take control of the people who consume it and turn them into these hollow, lifeless zombies. It's not like a George Romero traditional zombie apocalypse. It's more like a goo-fueled takeover. Imagine your favorite snack turning into a mind control device. And that's the basic premise here. The more you eat, the less you are yourself. It's like the Stuff is in your head, pulling the strings. You're still alive, but you're no longer you. And it's kind of unsettling when you think about it. Now, let's talk about one of the more memorable scenes. There's this hotel room scene where the Stuff comes to life in a way that'll make your skin crawl. Goo is splattering everywhere. The terror, it's totally over the top, and you can't help but laugh, even though it is kind of horrifying. It's a perfect example of 80s practical effects in all their messy glory. This is a film that knows exactly what it is. Goofy, a little campy, and fully committed to the chaos. Watching the goo do its thing, whether it's attacking or simply oozing into every crevice of a room, becomes this bizarre spectacle. It's one of those scenes that sticks with you, even though it's not really trying to scare you in any traditional sense. And I gotta give a shout out to the absurdly brilliant TV commercials that pop up throughout the film. These ads for the stuff feel like they were ripped straight out of some weird alternate reality. They're this weird, hyper-real parody of corporate marketing, almost too spot on to be a joke. So picture an over-the-top commercial for a brand new product, something that's supposed to revolutionize your life. And then imagine that product is actually alive and totally manipulative. These commercials play up the absurdity, and they also act as a satirical commentary on just how easily people can be sold anything, no matter how dangerous it might be. The way they're integrated into the film really adds to the overall satirical edge of the film. Now, where things start to get even more interesting, the more you watch, the more you realize that the stuff is trying to do more than just deliver the gooey scares. It's holding up a mirror to consumer culture and the ways we blindly follow trends, even when they might be harmful. And while it's definitely a fun ride, it's also a subtle warning about our willingness to consume without thinking about the consequences. Alright, what do I think of this film? Let's break it down. First up, let's talk about the scares. Now, the stuff isn't exactly going to have you jumping at shadows or lying awake at 3 a.m. thinking about it. It's not one of those films that haunts your dreams, you know? But there are some moments that definitely will make you go, whoa, that's creepy. The idea of something as harmless as dessert becoming this grotesque, deadly force is, well, unsettling to say the least. There's something about how seemingly innocent and everyday object, something we're all familiar with, can be turned into a weapon of mass destruction. That really gets under your skin. And while we're not talking about The Exorcist here, the film does deliver a few gross out moments that hit the mark. When you see people eating the stuff and it starts to take over, there's a whole new level of no thank you. But overall, the film leans more into camp than it does genuine horror. The scares are there, but they're a bit on the light side. This is a film that's more about having fun with its weirdness than terrifying you. And let's talk about the storytelling. This movie really does a fantastic job of throwing shade at consumerism and our blind trust in big corporations. And I gotta say, this stuff is still relevant today. We're talking about a world where people are consuming something they don't understand, mindlessly believing it's good for them just because it's marketed well. The satire is sharp, and it feels like the film could have been made in any decade and still hit home. But, and here's the catch, the plot does start to lose a little steam halfway through. It's like the film gets so wrapped up in its wacky premise that it forgets to keep things tight and focused. Some of the characters get lost in the shuffle as well. You've got these really over-the-top people running around, but a lot of them feel like they haven't been fully fleshed out. Now, I know what you're probably thinking, Josh, who needs deep character development when there's killer ice cream to worry about? And that's a fair point. You are not wrong. This is exactly, well, not exactly Citizen Kane, right? This is not here for awards. You're not here for any deep drama. You're here because of a killer dessert. So let's talk about entertainment value, because that is where the stuff really comes alive. This is quite a ride. It's ridiculously fun. It doesn't, even for a second, take itself seriously, and it knows exactly what kind of movie it is. This is one of those films that revels in its own silliness. So if you're a fan of cheesy dialogue, I mean, just look at Mo when he introduced himself. My name is Mo. Why Mo? Because when people give me money, I want Mo. Come on. That's just ridiculous, but I still laugh. Anyways, you're going to get a kick out of it. Or Chocolate Charlie. When he's referred to as, hey, you're Chocolate Charlie. He goes, well, I ain't no Kentucky Colonel. Garrett Morris is amazing. I love that guy. The characters here, they're wacky in the moments that are over the top. And I think you're going to find yourself laughing 1 minute and cringing the same time. And I love it. The practical effects are maybe a little rough around the edges, but that's part of their charm. This film never tries to hide its limitations. Instead, it just embraces them with all the enthusiasm it can muster. This is the ultimate celebration of low-budget horror, and if you're into that, you're in for a treat. So, my overall verdict on this wild ride, balancing everything out, I give it a 6 out of 10. It's not going to win any awards for being a cinematic masterpiece, but it is definitely in that so bad it's good kind of category of horror films that really pushes it over the edge from mediocre to actually fun. It's fun, it's weird, and it's definitely worth a watch if you're in the mood for something strange, something a little goofy. But make sure going in to not take it too seriously. This is not the movie to watch if you're looking for high art or complex storytelling. This isn't that elevated horror of Hereditary or Midsummer. It's about the fun, the absurdity, and the ride. If you can just let yourself enjoy it for what it is, you'll have a blast. And speaking of movies that don't take them too seriously, next up, I want to talk about one that's got its own brand of ridiculousness in a different kind of way. But we'll talk about that when we come back. All right, horror fans, we've reached the end of our journey through the stuff. Now, if you haven't had the pleasure or misfortune of seeing this gem yet, well, I'd say it's worth a watch. I mean, who wouldn't want to survive the gooey madness, right? It's like a roller coaster made of slime and weird marketing choices. Sort of the Nickelodeon Double Dare grand prize of films. And hey, at the very least, it's one of those movies that'll leave you with a story to tell for a long time. The effects alone are enough to make you look at yogurt a little differently from now on. But you know, that's the beauty of horror. It's never about the scares. Sometimes it's about the absurdity, the weirdness, and those films that make you say, did I really just watch that? And the stuff definitely falls into that category. Now, if you're liking what you're hearing on Real Talk and you're enjoying these deep dives into classic horror, or in this case, the delightfully strange, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and share this episode with your horror-loving friends. Trust me, if they don't thank you, at least I will, when they can't stop talking about the stuff over the next late-night snack. And hey, if you've got a favorite horror flick that you'd love to see me break down, I want to hear from you. You can find me on Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky at Real Talk. You can find me on X at Real Talk Pod, or email therealrealtalk@gmail.com. Let's make sure our conversation never ends. And speaking of next time, are you ready for this? We're about to dive headfirst into one of the most controversial films out there. A movie that still gets people talking decades after its release. One of the first found footage horror films. I'm talking about Cannibal Holocaust. Now, fair warning, this movie is not for the faint of heart. It's a film that pushes the boundaries of what horror can be, and we're going to talk about it all, the good, the bad, and the truly unsettling. And if it's something that should be. You definitely don't want to miss this one. So until next time, Keep the horror alive, stay spooky, stay curious, and as always, keep it real.
Creeping through the silence dark, whispers in the midnight park. The night is cold, there's no escape. Ghostly figures take their shape. Shadows play a twisted game. Fear and terror stake their claim. Footsteps follow close behind. Haunting thoughts invade your mind. Run away, but they won't go. In the darkness, fear will grow. Midnight shadows come to play. In your dreams, they'll always stay. Windows rattle, doors they creak. Ghostly whispers start to speak. Every corner hides a fear. Close your eyes, they're drawing